Peace, King. How you feeling?
Good. How are you?
All is well. All is well. Man, first and foremost, I appreciate you coming on the platform. It's definitely an honor.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
Right, right. I know you're doing a lot of stuff in the community, and I know you got moves to make. So we're gonna get right into it. For the viewers who may not recognize you, let them know who you are and definitely where you're from.
Edwin Hubbard Jr., um, Northeast Ohio, more specifically Bedford Heights, Ohio, but I'm a Clevelander.
Right, right. Big shout out to Bedford, man. We went to high school together. For the viewers who don't know, man, you've been doing your thing for a long time. I'm definitely proud of you, man. Keep up the great work.
And likewise, you're doing some great work yourself.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, Now I gotta ask you, now you're the executive director of the NAACP. What exactly is that in terms of Cleveland?
So the NAACP in itself is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I represent the Cleveland branch. The Cleveland branch is the largest branch in Ohio and one of the larger branches throughout the U.S. We focus primarily on Cuyahoga County and Cleveland. So Greater Cleveland is our focus area.
Oh, okay, okay, cool, man. That's major. I mean, the NAACP has represented for so long for so many positive things, and to be a part of that in any capacity is definitely an honor. So I gotta salute you for that. But even getting to the level of being the executive director of Cleveland, which is definitely have been a revolutionary city, in the fight to advance, black people.
Yeah, so we've been in Cleveland for 111 years. So we are a pretty old chapter. For me, is definitely I think a privilege to serve in this capacity, where I get to kind of represent an organization that is the oldest civil rights organization in the country. So, but there's no shortage of work, right? I mean, it's always something to do from the perspective of the NAACP.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm glad you said that because it's been over 100 years, and a lot of things have taken place in the city of Cleveland. Cleveland was like one of the largest cities back in the day. It was like in the top 10 most populated cities. When a lot of the blacks left the South, Cleveland was one of them places that they came to, and it created a lot of tension. So the NAACP was at the forefront of desegregating a lot of the schools that we go to, a lot of the neighborhoods that we go to, a lot of the jobs and the companies. So they was definitely putting in a lot of work right here in this city. Now I wanted to ask you, now what exactly when you say executive director, what is that position like? I mean, what do you have to do? What are you responsible for?
So I manage the day-to-day operations of the branch. I'm responsible for fundraising, coordination of volunteers, community efforts. So, you would see me on a lot of things like this, having conversations, sometimes speaking to news outlets, going and visiting schools, churches, and other organizations. I like to say my job is making civic engagement cool again. From my perspective, and what my hope for this organization is that I create an urgency for civic engagement to the same extent it was in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s. At one point in time, and even currently, right, having ability to vote and having your decision heard is a privilege. I think it's a privilege nowadays that we take for granted, but it's something that our grandparents and our forefathers fought for. The opportunity to vote, the opportunity to use legislation and policy in an effective way hasn't always been a privilege for Black people. And so our forefathers fought for us to have this opportunity. And my job is to make sure that I ensure that this next generation understands the importance of using their voice and making the changes that they wish to see within their communities. And that's a struggle. And it's a struggle. I have so many conversations on why people should be civically engaged, on a day in and day out basis, whether it's at a barbershop or a community gathering. I'm finding myself talking to people, specifically Black men, on, hey, are you voting? Are you registered to vote? Um, do you think voting is important? And a lot of times people tell me no. They tell me, the system isn't designed for us. In which I don't disagree. The system is not necessarily designed for us. But if you ever want to make it change, you have to learn how to use legislation and policy in order to make things be what you want them to be. If you're not the power broker and you don't have the consensus of power in this country, you have to use the structures in place in order to make things operate in your favor.
Oh, okay, definitely, man. I know that's a lot of work that you're doing, but somebody got to do it. So I definitely salute you on that note. And you talked about voting. Um, I guess like when we was in school, or at least I can speak for myself, we didn't really learn a lot about how to vote and stuff like that. Say like if somebody running for president, obviously we'll vote for that. But then they'll have elections in between, and a lot of times the people that's running, we don't know who they are. We don't know if they're good for us or not. So, is it any type of like program where we can kind of catch up to speed and learn about who we should be voting for, or who can help us the most? Or
No, so I think that that's an awesome question, and I think I can give you a lot of different answers. Growing up, we didn't have that. What I always tell people, civic engagement for a lot of people was the NAACP, right? You came and you got involved, you got your membership card, and that's where you locked in. For me, when I got to college, is where I really started to learn about campaigns and the issues and things that were at stake. My parents were believers in voting; they've always voted and told me about it, but the only way I really knew about what was happening was the flyers I got in the mail, or maybe some city forums that were happening. Nowadays, we do a couple of different things. Typically, as these past elections just happened, we would host forums. They have candidates come in and talk about their platforms. So have the candidates come into the community, invite community members to come in and ask whatever questions that they ask, and to get clear answers on why you should be electing these candidates for their respective positions. We'll do that. We can certainly endorse issues, and we can certainly have conversations with candidates. Although, we wouldn't tell you who necessarily to vote for in terms of a president. Once you lay the issues out and you hear the candidates' answers, I think it's pretty clear. So although, I may tell you, this candidate is not the best candidate for you, I'm not going to tell you to vote for or against this person, but I would encourage you to use some deductive reasoning. You heard what this candidate said, this is going to directly impact you this way. And I can tell you the negative ways it's going to impact you. You heard what this candidate said that can possibly impact you in a positive way. I mean, you ultimately have the right to decide whoever you want, but obviously in that scenario, one candidate is clearly better than the other candidate.
man, that's what's up. That's what's up. Cause I'm not as politically savvy as I should be, but I could speak from experience. I know I like to engage with my councilmen in different wards. Like the last 3 or 4 councilmen that I have had, I would reach out to them, I would call them, I would meet with them, sit down with them one on one, and discuss things that I could do directly that would benefit the community. Maybe like a urban garden, or renaming a street, or cleaning up a certain area. Just doing different types of things. So I think some people, they kind of just hang it on voting, but then it's possible that they could, go the extra mile or go the extra step. I think that's important too.
And I like what you said. As a man, I'm not just about voting for somebody who has political aspirations. I like to consider myself to be a man of the people. I care about the community. So I like people who roll up their sleeves and who are willing to work. People who are about action, and people who care about making a difference, and people who can be held accountable once they're in the office, and they don't just, get lackadaisical and not do the things that they said that they're going to do. That's what I care about. All the political talk and the broken promises, I'm not interested in. I'm interested in people who are going to do the work, and then from my perspective, also being those community people who hold them accountable. And that's what we have to be about. We can't do that if we don't know the issues. We can't do that if we're not exercising that voting muscle and making a decision. And so they, not to go off on a tangent, but I had this conversation with a guy who was telling me I don't vote because I think all politicians are corrupt. And I'm like, okay, if you think all politicians are corrupt, if you choose not to vote for them, the corrupt people continue to stay in positions of power. So in essence, you are voting for them by not voting for them because you're not changing, you're only complaining, and then you're knowing you're going to get the same results.
Man, that's major. I'm glad you said that. Wow. Now I can ask you this for the viewers, if they do want to become engaged, they do want to contribute. What can they do to show support for their local NAACP branch? Can they volunteer? Can they donate? Or what? How can they be of service?
They can become a member of the national NAACP, or if they live in Cleveland, they can become a member of the Cleveland branch NAACP by simply going to our website, clevelandnaacp.org, or you can go to the national naacp.org and you can get a membership. A membership is $30 annually, and it just allows us to be able to continue to do the work that we do. Like I said, we receive complaints, and we're the largest civil rights organization. So mass national events that happen like George Floyd, we were there. When injustice happens, we pride ourselves on being there, and that's what we continue to work towards day in and day out.
Oh, okay. Wow, I never even thought about it. I mean, because we always grew up learning about the NAACP. It was always iconic, and then, like you say, you could just join and become a member, and it's that simple. You know what I'm saying? At least you made it sound simple, so that's
It's
dope.
it's it's, it's simple to join, but the real work is people getting involved. I
Hmm.
always encourage people to join the committee and get involved in the work that we do. And that's anything. If you have a complaint about the conditions in which you live in, you have to be able to roll up your sleeves and to do the work in order to make the changes. Standing on the sideline and talking about what's not working in organizations and what they're not doing is not a solution. The solution is actually working. So I'm always giving the gospel of the NAACP, but I'm also having conversations about just the importance of civic engagement. We're in a different place. Like you said, a lot of it we learned about some of these organizations when we were kids, but I'm telling you, kids are not learning about their history the same degree that we did. I spoke at a high school summit a few weeks back, and I spoke to a young lady who was a senior in high school who did not know about the NAACP, what the organization was, and couldn't even tell me who a civil rights leader was. And when I asked the young lady, because she named one person, she named Harriet Tubman. Now, there's a lot of problems with that, right? But the biggest problem is our schools are failing our children, and our families are failing their children because the parents have to pass that information down to the youth. So the parents are not having the conversations, our school systems are not having the conversations, and our community at large is not having the conversations, at least not to the degree that they should be. So, I mean, it's our responsibility to make sure that the next generation understands the importance of civic engagements, understands the importance of civil rights, right? And then understands the history. And it's our responsibility individually to ensure that that history is preserved and continues to be passed generation to generation.
Yeah, definitely. I can attest to that because I've been substitute teaching maybe like the last 3 years. I travel around the world, but when I come back to the US, that's something that I do. And I don't know, maybe because of the generation we was born in, but like you say, the parents is not passing over that information, but they're definitely not getting that Black history that we was getting for sure. Let me see. Okay, now I gotta ask you about this. Um, what is EH Inspires LLC?
So EH Inspires is my consulting firm. I started in 2019. Um, I always had a knack for public speaking. I always had an interest in public speaking, but it had to make sense, right? So part of it is telling people my story, but then the major interest I had in starting the business was helping people turn strikes into strengths. Something I always heard from my mother when I was a child is like, as a young Black man, you naturally have two strikes against you. You're Black and you're a man. And you can't allow that to stop you from getting to where you need to get to, but you just need to be aware that those are two factors that may hinder you from being able to advance or excel. So now, when I have that conversation, I got people will say, I have two strikes against me. Yes, I'm Black and I'm a man, and those are the two strikes that I'm using to help me propel my brand and help others elevate themselves. So we turn those strikes into things that they can use to help them advance. I would tell you right now, it's never been a more favorable time to be a Black man. And America still has a long way to go in order to really be equal in the opportunities that are presented to us. But I'm telling you right now, it's better than it ever was. I had a conversation with the organization years ago, and they were doing an icebreaker activity. And on the sheet on the icebreaker activity, it said, name a time that you would love to go back to in history. What's your favorite time period of when you would like to go back to? What time frame would you visit if you could? And I got offended. And the people who obviously were running this organization didn't look like me. And they said, well, why are you offended? I said, because I can't think of a better time than right now when it would have been to be a black male. You want me to go back to pre-civil rights? Then I'm going back to Jim Crow. You want me to go back prior to that? We going back to slavery, right? We going back to the Great Depression and slavery times where, what time frame can you name in the history of this country where black people had a good time? You can't. So even though we're not where we should be, we're a lot further than we were.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I definitely can relate to that. Them two strikes, man. But I think a lot of people take it for granted. I was reading online, the CDC and a couple other places, Oprah, they was talking about it, but they say that black men are more involved in their children's lives than any other group of people in America. But we've always heard that negative stereotype about who we are and what we do. You know what I'm saying?
No, I think you're right. And I'm a father and I have two sons, and I take that into consideration in everything I do. And that also was a part of me wanting to start my own company. What skills that I had that I could share with the world. And I've done some consulting on a large scale. I've done emotional intelligence, I've done unconscious bias, and then I've even done some motivational speaking and just kind of shared my story with how I navigated certain situations. As a black male, there's no shortage of stories that I could give you on rooms that I've been the only one in, right? And how I've had to navigate those experiences to get to where I am today. So from my perspective with my company, I love to give my perspective on how people can use the things that I went through to help them navigate future problems, current problems, and to become the best versions of themselves. Additionally, I have a background in fundraising. So my degree is in nonprofit management from Cleveland State University, and I've been a fundraiser pretty much all of my career. So that entails, writing grants and building relationships with corporations and individual donors and foundations as well.
Wow, that's phenomenal, King. Man, keep up the great work. Let me see. I wanted to ask you about this. You had a couple different events going on. Uh, it was changing the narrative on youth justice and violence prevention.
So, from the perspective of the NAACP, we always have conversations on what's relevant things that we should be talking about to the community. We're in election season. We just got out of election season, and we're going into a season where we're going to be electing the next president of the United States of America. Well, people always ask me, what are some of the greatest, challenges and troubles that we find? I always respond like we should be asking that question to the community. So we had a conversation and decided to let's develop a forum. Let's invite the community to tell us some of the greatest issues that we're facing and start to look for solutions to fix those problems, but then also to make the community at large more aware of what's happening. And that's how we got into the youth violence. And we said, all right, let's build a forum. Let's pull some people who have the knowledge and skill base. And we invited some judges in. We invited people who have vast amounts of knowledge, and even a man who had also been incarcerated as a youth come out and had become a success story. Right? We start talking about how our youth are being impacted by violence and what we can do to start making those changes. So that was the first part of that series. It's going to be a 3-part series, and I plan to go deeper every time. I want to engage other youth who have either previously been incarcerated or who have been in the system, and we talk about the damage of what happens when kids who are incarcerated as youth are bonded over into adult prisons and how much worse their lives become. Right. And so I want to address those issues, and I want to start having more conversations about that. And that's going to create the platform for us to start creating some solutions.
Oh man, that's great, man. Keep that going. I definitely look forward to seeing and hearing more about that because it's obvious that, man, it's just so many guns and drugs, and our youth are getting access to them. But like you had mentioned, some of them are in situations where they got to go from being in a youth prison to being in an adult prison, and that just creates a enormous more problems. You know what I'm saying? Because I was reading an article, and it was saying that America perhaps is one of the only countries where men are sexually assaulted more than women, and a lot of the article has to do with the prison system, because there's a lot of things going on in there, but a lot of times the men don't report it, or even in some cases they may be 17-year-olds or 16-year-olds, and they are in a situation where they're around adult criminals and stuff like that. So I just wanted to add that.
No, you're absolutely right, and that was one of the things that was said at our forum. When youth are bonded over into adult prisons, the chances of them being sexually assaulted skyrockets exponentially. So I mean, it's a terrible thing that's happening to our youth, and the best way to stop it is stop them before they get there, right? Stop them before they go to prison to begin with, and then rehabilitate them while they're in prison, so they don't have to be bonded over into adult prisons. And I just want to mention this too. It's two different things. The purpose of a youth being incarcerated should be for rehabilitation. Um, Adult prisons are for punishment, and a lot of people don't understand that. When a person is tried as an adult and goes to an adult prison, that is punishment. That is not rehabilitation. Children are supposed to be rehabilitated when they're incarcerated.
Indeed. Let me see now. I wanted to ask you about another event, the National Executive Women's Leadership Summit. You could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to speak on a panel for the Women of Color Foundation, which hosts this annual meeting. So a few weeks back, probably a few months back, I was approached to speak on this panel of this event that happened just a few weeks back. And yeah, the conversation really just involved collaboration versus competition between men and women. And this is a panel of Black professionals. And ironically, my president, who I have a phenomenal president of my branch, and Kayla Griffin, who happens to be an attorney by trade and is overall voting is local in Ohio. We had a conversation on what it felt like between collaboration versus competition. And for me, I thought it was profound to be on a panel with her because we work in that very position. My board president, who happens to be a young Black woman, works side by side with me. So we always look at it two ways. I would tell you, if someone asked me what is the official stance or opinion of the Cleveland branch NAACP, I would tell you, you wouldn't hear from me. You would hear from my president and Kayla Griffin. Now, if somebody was to ask me what the Cleveland branch NAACP is doing in terms of community work and what our focus is, that's a question that you would probably direct towards me, right? And so we work in tandem. She has a skill set that I don't have, and I have a skill set that she doesn't have, and we work harmoniously together in order to address the various issues within our community. But it hasn't always been that way between men and women in the workforce, right? So many of us are placed in positions where we are competing with our colleagues instead of supporting them. And I like to say that I'm a profound champion of Black women and Black people in general, right? I want all of us to win, but I don't feel like I have to put somebody else down in order for me to win. And I think that there's enough opportunity for us to all advance together, even though we're not always taught that.
Oh, okay. I appreciate you touching on that. That sounds great, man. Now I can ask you because I don't know how involved you are on social media, but it seems sometimes it's somewhat of some division between the Black men and the Black women. Maybe not necessarily in the workplace, but more in terms of home and dating. And I don't know. Do you think it's something that we can work on? Do we need to go to training, have classes, or is it something that have to be taught at home or something in the schools? Like, what is it going to take for us to get on the same page? Because obviously we need each other to move forward.
I think that's a good question. The division that exists between black men and black women started at the family structure. Without even going through a history lesson, we know that the black family has been attacked for generations, and has pit the black men and black women against each other in so many situations. I think in order to address that problem, we first have to challenge ourselves. Do we know who we are? Do we have a profound love for our counterpart? I was created by black women, right? I came from black parents, so I have a profound love for black women. I love my mother. I have a wife. I love my wife. I have a family, so I love my family. I love the women in my family, and I understand how I was raised as a male and what it's supposed to be in terms of being a leader. But leadership for me does not mean that I have to rule somebody else. It means that I can live by my truth. It means that I am able to be a team player. It means that I'm able to work alongside, my counterparts for the greater good. And I think even if I'm taking that out of a work context, so many of my friends are black women, incredible black women. And I think as a friend, it is my responsibility to show up for them and to support them. And that's in all things, as a thought partner, as a spiritual partner, and as a professional partner, helping my friends advance and get into the spaces that they desire to be in.
Right. Say that, King. Black women are definitely incredible. I was checking out an article, and maybe you have come across it as well. They say that black women are the most educated group. They get master degrees, bachelors, associates, and PhDs left and right. So it's definitely a good time to bring all that knowledge and information together and utilize it.
In elevating our black women, we elevate ourselves. They'll advocate for you 10 times over if you advocate for them. And that's no knock on being a black man. As a black male, I'm an alpha male, and I'm a leader. But I don't have pride issues when it comes to allowing somebody else to take center stage when it's necessary, allowing someone else to lead when it's necessary, because a leader is wise. A leader knows in what situations they need to assert their dominance, and then they also know in what situation they need to allow someone else to take lead.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I agree with that. Let me see. Now I wanted to ask you about the 100 Black Men of America, and then you had an event, 100 Black Men in Ties. Is that connected or is that separate? Or
It is. So 100 Black Men of America is a national organization, and in Cleveland, we have the 100 Black Men of Greater Cleveland. I'm a longtime member and board member of that organization, and I'm chairing a gala that's going to be held on December 9th, next Saturday, at the Marriott Hotel here in Cleveland. It's a fundraiser. The 100 Black Men of Greater Cleveland and 100 Black Men of America is a phenomenal organization that focuses on mentoring of young Black males. I'm incredibly passionate about this organization because we help elevate Black men to become the greatest version of themselves. We start with kids in elementary, at around the age of 11 or 12, and we mentor them throughout the school year, and then mentor them through high school and even into college. And then and it's just a great thing to be able to see them matriculate up and to become professional men. We've had so many success stories on young Black men who, some have fathers, others didn't have fathers or strong male mentors, but we take the time to really walk them through life and help them and guide them to become the best versions of themselves. So that looks like us tutoring them in schoolwork. That looks like us. We have something called Walk a Mile with the Child. Well, we explore the metro parks while taking a mile walk with the boys and just kind of explore what problems that they have going on and help them address the problems that they have going on. The most unique thing about this organization to me is that our members are doctors, lawyers, executive directors, bankers, CEOs, professional Black men who just want to make a difference in their lives. So, what they see is what they'll be, right? And this is the truest form of representation. You have DJs. I mean, you have so many different types of professional Black men showing up for these boys and showing them how they've navigated life in order to be the professionals that they are today. And I'm incredibly passionate and humbled to be the gala chair of this event.
Man, that's amazing. Yeah, we definitely need to utilize that. I mean, because like you said, they're around doctors, and lawyers, and businessmen. I mean, it's it's infinite to what they could potentially become, just based upon that, because so many seeds will be planted at an early age. So if it's somebody on both sides, if it's a adult man that want to become involved, or if maybe it's a lady that have a son and she want to get him involved, what is the process like for that?
So they can reach out. So we typically do an intake once a year for men. There's a background check component. There's an interview process, and then upon the successful completion of the background check and the interview process, we have an annual pennant ceremony where those men are inducted into the organization, and then they join the committee and they serve as leaders. On the opposite side, if a parent was interested in getting their child involved, they could simply reach out to the 100 Black Men of Greater Cleveland office and look to get their child enrolled in the program.
Okay, cool. We making good time. So I just got one last question for you. Do you have any upcoming events or anything, where the viewers can tap in with you, meet and greets, I don't know, parties, or, social gatherings, or, speakings, engagements, or business wise, where they can connect with you?
Upcoming is the gala. That's what we'll have right now, December 9th. Next year, the Cleveland branch NAACP on June 29th will have its Freedom Fund dinner at the Renaissance Hotel. It's a large fundraiser for us that has over 675 people on an annual basis come out and celebrate the achievements that we've had throughout the year and recognize some phenomenal community leaders at that. So I have that. I'm always open for speaking engagements and opportunities to come out and talk to people. So you can certainly reach out to me on that way. I'm on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. So that's the events that we have upcoming. And then even we do a lot of community service. I know we mentioned some of the organizations I represented. We didn't mention one of my most important ones, which is my fraternity back here, Omega Psi Fraternity Incorporated, where I serve as the bossless or president of the chapter in Akron. So we are always doing community service. We are always out and looking to connect with people and anything to make our community a better and safer place.
Okay. Wow, man, it's been a great episode. Like I said, we go back since high school, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the platform. I'm definitely inspired by what you're doing, and I'm processing the information, so I could be better and I can give back more. So man, keep up the great work. I definitely look forward to the things that you got coming up in the future, and hopefully we can connect, man. If not, see each other again for sure.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, no doubt. So I want to thank the viewers for tuning in. It's been a great episode of Taye Speaks. So until next time, family, peace.